This has been a healing weekend and recognizing how much we are one with everything and all. So our word for today is healing. And the strength of spirit is ours on our healing journey. If we are coping with a health challenge, it's natural to feel uncertain and afraid. And with gentleness and compassion for ourselves, we allow those feelings, but we do not succumb to them. Instead, we train our thoughts on the peace and the perfection within us and within spirit. We recognize that love flowing, and we relax and renew in our awareness that we are spirit, and we are spirit's likeness and image and strength and healing. Everything that God is, we are too. Wholeness is our true nature. We remember this during our time of healing and prayer and affirmation. The wholeness of spirit is ours now, always. Whenever we find ourselves sinking into any feeling of despair, we remember the wholeness of spirit is ours now and always. Healing is ours. And when we touch this truth, when we recognize it, we have no fear. Isaiah 41. We do not fear, for we are spirit. We are not afraid, for God is us. And we strengthen through that. We uphold our knowledge and our strength, and we do not fear. The strength of spirit is ours on our healing journey. Okay, so today the whole title was Like a Tree today. And if you haven't seen, the titles up through July are on the web. So you can check out the website for what's upcoming. I want to start with a quote actually from Max Planck. And Max Planck, he says, as a man who has developed his whole life to the most clear-headed science, to the study of matter, I can tell you, as a result of my research about atoms, this much: there is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force which brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter. Yeah, I love it when the science matches up to what people have known for thousands of years. And we talked a little bit about the book, The Divine Matrix, yesterday. I referred to it. And in that book, Greg Braden talks about the twin photon experiment. And if you don't know what that is, it's in a nutshell. They took one photon, they split it in two, made two photons, sent it in opposite directions down fiber optic cables so that they ended up being 14 miles apart, right? And they did something to the one particle, and the other particle reacted as if it was having the same experience, because it was having the same experience. And the other layer of that is they tried to find out how much time has spanned for the one photon to react to what was happening in the other photon. And there was no difference. It was automatic. There was no time frame in there. So whatever stimulus one photon had, the other one acted the same with no lag time. Which is like experimental evidence to back up Max Planck here, saying that all physical matter is connected. And all physical matter is connected from the initial point of creation. So if that's true, then we're not really separate. And we're not separate because we always, we say in this building all the time, we're part of the one universe, but here's some data, something that we can wrap around that says that. In the Mother Tree Project, and some of the next things I say are right off of that website, but there is another book called Finding the Mother Tree that this website was made from. And it's Dr. Simard, and Susan Simard, and she's just amazing, just absolutely amazing. But she talks about, and what she was able to find through science is that this connectivity that they're recognizing in the photons can be seen in the plant life and in the tree life. So there's a network of underground everything, bacteria, network of roots, of other organisms, all underneath the surface of the trees that communicate and actually share resources. And she's been working at this at least 30 years now, I think, if I understand her timeline correctly. So it's taken her a long time to get people to start to listen to her, right? And she had to do some, the book talks about her experimental process. So I don't want to get into, because that's like a lot, but know her results are everything is connected and communicates. Even trees interact with other species even. They communicate and share resources with other species, not just their own. And they can find their genetic offspring though, which is also neat. We don't think about plants being able to figure out, what trees or plants grew from the seeds that came from them. And yet they find that they can, right? And in moments where that mother tree finds that she is not as well or might not be around as much, she sends out all her extra nutrients to her offspring, so that they can keep on keeping on even if she's not here. How cool is that? So forests show this natural connection. And part of her work is to teach this so that when people do cut down trees from the forest and for resources for humanity, that they do it in such a way that it keeps the system intact, so that it keeps thriving, because there's a huge connection between us and the tree. We share a breathing cycle. We need those things to happen. And if the trees aren't happy where they're at, and she found that, yes, they go back and they replant the trees, but they're only replanting ones that grow super fast. So I think they were pine, things like that. They just plant a bunch of pine and then hoping that they can come back and reharvest it. And when you see pictures, aerial pictures of this, the places where they have done that are not healthy. And you can actually tell that from the air. They are brownish colors, orange colors. They're not as healthy at all. So to harvest means to also honor the cooperation that takes place in these environments. And she says, and this is, she did a couple of different TED Talks now, but at the end of one of them, she has a big banner up that she clicks on, says, "We are one. We are not different from the trees." That cooperation is necessary for us as humanity, as it is with the trees, and then a back and forth cooperation. Jean Shenandoah Bolin, and I have her book in the other room. I was going to bring it out and show you, but if you want to see it after, I have it in the other room. She wrote like a tree about 10-ish years ago. There's actually a reprinting that's just come out recently of that book. And it's the subtitle is How Trees, Women, and Tree People Can Save the Planet. And it's a lovely piece of work. She talks about how change comes through consciousness that grows collectively, and how one circle at a time, one person at a time. So little by little. So people like Greg Braden, people like Max Planck and Dr. Simard, those little nuggets that keep getting out there is what really, really helps. And there's precedent for this, but she points out, Ms. Bolden points out, that when a critical number of people start hearing those things, then a new idea is actually accepted into the consciousness, and then culture shifts. You know, but you need to keep doing the tiny little things in order to get to that point. You need to keep exploring and to recognize, and this is a little bit what I hope we'll discover later today, is that a tree is not just a thing, but a presence, just as we are a presence. And a presence is sacred, right? A presence is sacred. And this is a quote from Jenn. She said, "Sacred is a perception that is not recognized by the rational mind, but by other ways of knowing. To know that this is sacred ground, or that this is a sacred object, or to feel the presence of spirit, and to trust our own deeper sense, may be a fundamental difference between tree people and not tree people." And I love that she splits the world into tree people and not tree people. You know, the recognition of sacred or the not recognition of sacred. And she also, so to be like a tree is to be part of the collaborative universe. And over again, it's cooperation, not competition. Cooperation, not competition, that keeps it moving. And even though we're individuals, to recognize that we need each other for support, and we need the world around us as support. You know, we're basically on a rock hanging in nothingness, you know. We gotta learn how to cooperate with the rock here. And she talks about how trees and people both put roots into the earth. You know, we both use the earth, we both pull nutrients from the earth, we both sink ourselves down into that and need that energy back and forth. And that each uses, is recognized by beautiful details and beautiful talents. Think of that. The trees are each so different. You know, if you get to know a tree or recognize a tree, no pattern of bark is the same. No animals living in the tree is quite the same. You know, it doesn't grow quite as one way or the other as even its neighbor that's the same species. And we are the same, right? We have special talents. We have special deep details. We have a special relationship with nature. And each of us, whether we're plant or person, need to live on as exactly who we are in order to grow to the fullest, right? And to cooperate with where we need to cooperate in order to grow to the fullest. And appreciate that connection. And appreciate that it's okay to be really, really different from somebody and still have a connection, just like the trees are sharing resources with ones that aren't their own, right? And even organisms that aren't trees, they're sharing back and forth. The other, I don't know, it was like last week or the week before, I take a walk from my house to a local park, and I do, you know, 2 to 3 miles around. And it's usually the same because I'm a creature of habits. It's usually the same space all the time. And depending on what time of day you go, you get to know this group of people is kind of doing the same thing at this time of day. This group of people is doing it this time of day. And later in, you know, right about mid-morning, there's one gentleman that usually walks the same route. And you know how you normally don't interact, right? You just kind of do your thing. And this morning stuck in my head because I don't know if you know who Leslie Jordan is, but I got this Leslie Jordan Rainbow City Pride, it says Light, Love, and Leslie on it, t-shirt. You know, it's just like really bold and kind of out there. And this gentleman was wearing his, we'll just call it very conservative wording t-shirt on his body. So here I am not, and there he is, and we're walking, and he stops me out of nowhere and wants to ask about if I was able to get close to the geese families that morning, because there's a couple of geese families down there, and one is like really young, and you know, there's like varying ages of baby geese, and again, depending on what time of day, whether they're out or not. And he was so excited to talk about the geese babies and how close he was able to get to those and what kind of interaction he had with them. And he can't wait to get down there again today and see if he can get just as close. And I was like, it was wonderful, right? It was absolutely wonderful. And then a few days later, a friend of mine told me that in the midst of, they had just one of the rainstorms we had recently, their house got totally flooded. And in the midst of this flooding, the neighbors who she didn't think liked her, right? Because it was the same dynamic. She's very not, and they very are in terms of the conservative realm of politicking. And they were the first ones over with the pump to get that so that they could save some of their house and some of their things and to get the animals out safe and all of that. And she's like, I can't believe it. Because they just like, any other, I'm like, yeah, but people's is people, right? And that's just one aspect of our lives. And it seems like, especially, I don't know, sometimes we put that one label that somebody has, even though everybody has like 500 labels on them. We take that one label and we're like, well, we can't interact or play or share resources or whatever because of that aspect. And yet nature is not that way at all. It's total cooperation, no matter what their label or what's going on. And these two little instances, I think just reminds me that we need to just move that aside of just a little bit and enjoy things like helping each other out in a moment of total need, or talking about the geese and how close you get and how exciting that is for somebody. Chief Seattle, this is a quote from Chief Seattle: all things are connected. Man did not weave the web of life. He is merely a strand in it. Whatever he does to the web, he also does to himself. So in that compassion and cooperation, it comes back around, right? It comes back around to us. So, if we're good stewards of the earth, then it comes back around to where we are more healthy, and we, live more productive and beautiful lives and have abilities to share with each other. There's a book from Thich Nhat Hanh called Essential Writings. And in there, he talks about a philosopher, if I pronounce it right, Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna. And he asked, before something was born, did it exist or not? Before the egg was born from a chicken, was it existent or non-existent? If it were already there, how could it have been born? He says that something already present cannot be born. And if we recognize that we are all part of the creation moment, right, then we have always, in some form, been here. We are part of divine that strongly. To be born means from nothing, you become something. From no one, you become someone. But nothing can be born from nothing. A flower is born from soil, minerals, seeds, sunshine, rain, and many other things. Meditation reveals that the no birth to all things, life is a continuation. I love how he says a flower isn't just born all by itself, right? It needs the connectedness of the soil and the minerals and the sunshine and the many other things. That we are a continuation of always. And in this form that we are right now, we're not here just like poof out of nowhere. It's the connectedness that creates that. And in the connectedness of the divine matrix, we recognize divinity, the connection of all things. We recognize God as the universe, not as a separate entity, but as the power that is creation itself, the power that we are aspects of, and the power between the particles, the nothingness and the allness. Between each breath that rotates between us and the trees. We recognize it as the one, and we are one. Thank you.